guys, welcome to the channel. In this particular video, I will explain the problem palindrome with minimum sum. So let's see what it says. Here is the problem statement and it says that you are given a string S. The string can contain small case English letters or a question mark. Now you can replace the question mark with any small case English letter. Now if it is possible to make the string S a palindrome after replacing all the question marks, then find the palindromic string with minimum ASCII sum of differences of adjacent characters. Otherwise return -1. Okay, so we are given a string and this string can be anything like any combination of small case English letters or a question mark. And our task is to replace the question marks with any small case English letter such that a palindrome can be formed. And if the palindrome is formed, then the palindrome should have minimum ASCII sum of differences between every pair of adjacent characters, right? Fine. Now, according to the problem, we need to check one more thing, that if it is possible, only we will have the answer, else we will have -1, right? So first of all, let me start with a brief explanation about a palindrome. So a palindrome string, okay, so let me write an example first. So I have written one example which is race car, and what's special about this string is whether you read this string from left to right or right to left, the string reads the same. You can see that it is going to be race car in both the cases, right? And such a string is known as a palindromic string. Now in programming, whenever we are asked to check whether a string is a palindrome or not, so we just follow a simple approach that every time the first and last character should be equal. So these two are equal, I will come to this point, and then again these two are equal, I will come to this point, again these two are equal, and for the last character we don't check because every string of say a length 1, right? Whether we have any character, so all these are going to be a palindrome, right? This is what the concept of palindrome is. Now let's talk about this example. For this example, we have a string which is A, then 3 times question mark. After that we have C, and then question mark, then C, then followed by question marks, right? Fine. Now for this string, we need to make this string a palindrome by replacing all the question marks, right? So how we can do that? We are simply going to check a palindrome that whether these two characters are equal or not. We will have a low pointer and a high pointer. This is what we do, and after this we are simply going to check whether the character at low and high are equal or not each time when we decrease and increase the value of, or like whenever we move the low and high pointer, right? Fine. So for the current position of low and high, we can see that we have a question mark at this point and we have character A, right? So in order to make them equal, we can replace this A, this question mark with the letter A, right? So this way we'll have A and A at these positions. And how many positions we have? Well, let me write all the positions: 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So let me make 12 positions first. So I will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, then 11 and 12, right? So we have A at the first and last position. After that, we come to these positions. And for this position, you can see that we have question mark at both the places. And we want both the characters to be equal. So we can replace both the question mark with a single value, with a single character. And you can see one more thing, that we want minimum ASCII sum of differences between the adjacent characters. So what is the immediate previous character that we have? It is A, right? So we are going to replace this question mark with A, and this way we will have the difference as 0 for these two characters, right? And we want the minimum difference. So this is how we start building the intuition. So what we can do is we can replace these two values with A again, right? And for this, again you can see that the previous character is A, right? So again we are going to replace with A. What about these two? Again we have the same condition, so we are going to replace with A, right? And now we have two values which is C and C. So we are simply going to write these values because we don't have any question mark, so we don't need to replace any value. After this we have question mark again, right? Now at this point you can see that our previous character is C. So at this position we need to replace the question mark with C. So we will do something like this, right? Now once we have formed the palindrome, so we need to do one thing, that we need to count the like sum of differences, right? So how we can do this? We are simply going to for each value of I, like we will start from this position and then we will find the sum of differences, right? So what we'll do is we will check ASCII value of A minus the ASCII value of previous character, which is A. So 0 for this, 0 for this, again 0 for this again 0. For these two, you can see that the ASCII value of A is 65, right? And the ASCII value of this C is 67. So this way the difference will be 2. So for this we have the difference as 2. Now again for this the difference is 0 and again 0, again 0. Then we have 2 again. Then we have 0, 0 and 0, right? These are the values that we have. You can see that the total sum of these values is going to be 2 plus 2, which is 4. So this way we will have the output as 4, right? Now I hope you have understood the problem statement and the explanation of this example. So let's talk about the solution now. Now for this solution, I have written one example here, and the approach is pretty simple, and you can observe from this point as well. The approach is simple, that first of all we are going to check whether it's possible or not. If it is possible, in that case we will solve the problem, else we will return -1, right? So I'll write one thing, that if not possible, if not possible, then of not possible for the string s, in that case we need to return -1. Fine. And else we are going to return a function which will solve the problem, right? This is what we need to do. Now for this time, just don't worry about these two functions, because I'm going to explain these two functions in detail, but this is the main approach that we are going to follow, right? Now let's talk about how we can check whether it's possible or not. So the idea is simple, that the same way we check the palindrome, we are going to use that way. We will have a pointer low at this point and a high, right? And after this we are going to check whether the character at low and high are equal or not. If these two characters are equal, in that case we will move our low and high here, you can see that. And then we will check these two are question mark, right? So we can replace the question mark with any value, so we don't have to worry about the case of question mark. Even there are four type of values that we can have. Let me explain this. What I can do is, okay, so I'm going to make this thing smaller, right? Let me store it somewhere. So I'm going to store this thing here, right? Now after this, what I'll do is, first of all let's talk about the values that we can have for the low and high pointers. So at the low position we can have a character, and at the high position we can have a character again. Okay, so instead of making this C, we need to write character, right? We can have character at the low and high position, or one more thing that we can have is character at the position of low and question mark at the position of high, right? And after this we can have one more thing, which is question mark at the position of low and a character at the position of high, or we can have both the places, we can have question mark. So these are the four type of values that we can have for low and high. Now for the current position of low and high, you can see that we have characters at both the places, like this condition, right? So for this we are going to check whether the characters are equal or not. So for this time these characters are equal, right? After this we will move our pointer to this position, and for this position you can see that again we have two question marks, and whenever we have question mark then the condition is like this. And for this position we can simply replace the values with any like any other English letter, right? This is what we can do. Now what about these two? For these two we have two characters, and whenever we have two characters we are going to check whether these are equal or not. So you can see that for this like for these two values, the values are not equal. So whenever these values are not equal, in that case I need to return false. Why return false? Because you can see that if these two values are not equal, then it is not possible to get the palindromic string in any way. Like we can replace these three question mark with any of the values, but still these values will not be same, right? So you can see that in only in that case it is not possible. So how we are going to implement this? Let me show you. The implementation is very simple. First of all we have a low, which is 0. Then we have high, which is like n minus 1. After this we'll do while uh, low is smaller than equal to high. In that case we need to check one thing, that if we have this condition. So what is this condition? This condition is because for these two condition as well, you can see that we can replace these two question mark with equal value. Like we have a here, so we can replace this question mark with a, or we have any other character, so we can replace the question mark with that particular character, right? But only in this case, if character are not equal, then we will return false. So I will write if my s of low is not equal to like question mark, and s of high is not equal to question mark, and s of low is not equal to high, and s of low is not equal to s of high, in that particular case I can say that it is not possible. So how to return, like it's simple to observe one thing, that we have a boolean function here, right? Because this function will tell me whether it is possible or not. So I can simply return false. In that case I'll return false, and at last when this condition is not true for any value of low and high, in that case I need to return true. This is what we need to do for the possible checking whether it's possible or not. So you can see that this is the function that we have, and once we have checked whether it's possible or not, then we need to write this particular function, right? Let's say if it is possible, so in that case we need to write this particular function. So let's see how we can solve the problem. Once we know that it is possible, then in that case we will do one thing. First of all, okay, so let me write the same example that we have in the problem statement, like this particular example. We have okay, so we have a, then we have question mark three times, after this we have c, then again we have question marks, then we have c, and then it is followed by question mark, right? This is what we have. Now for this string, our first task is going to be, so you can see that we have four type of values here, right? So first of all we are going to replace these two type of values. Let's see how we can do this. When okay, so I don't think that this example is suitable. Let me modify this example a little bit. In order to modify this example, what I'll do is I'll write z here, and after this, okay, so I think this is enough, or I should do one more thing, that I will write P here. Okay, fine. Now this is a good example to explain. So what I'll do is, first of all, I'll start traversing the string, and I have low here and I have high here. Fine. Now for the low and high, what I'll do is I'll check whether the value is equal or not. So you can see that for these two values, we have at the low position we have a character, and at the high position we have a question mark. So we can simply replace this question mark this a with this a, right? So what I'll do is, if my s of low is equal to question mark, in that case my s of high, okay, so if s of high equal to question mark, I have done a mistake here. If s of high is equal to question mark, in that case we can do s of high equal to s of low. This is what we can do. And similarly, if we have uh, if we have one more case, which is s of low is equal to question mark, in that case as well we can write s of low equal to s of high. S of high, this is something that we need to do for every value of low and high. So we will have while low is smaller than high, and this way we will have low plus plus here and high minus minus, and the same thing we need to do here as well. Here I have not changed the value of pointers, so we need to do something like low plus plus and high minus minus each time, right? Okay, so now when this loop completes, then values like this will be replaced. So we will have a string like this. We have a, then we have question mark, then we have z, then we have, okay, so then we will have p here. I will have p here, then c, then question mark, then again c, then I have p, then I have z, then I have question mark and a, right? When this loop is completed, then I will have this string modified to this string, right? Okay, now for this string we have only two type of values for every high. Let me explain. These value will be like replaced, and these value will be replaced. So we will have either two characters or two question marks. Now what's special about this particular scenario is, let's explain from let me show you from this. You can see that we have two question mark, right? So whenever we have two question mark, then we can replace the question mark with the previous value, right? So now we need to do one simple thing, that we are going to iterate over all these values. So again, let me make this particular thing smaller. Okay, so what we are going to do is, now we are going to iterate over all the values, but before this we need to keep track of the previous value. Why we need to keep track of previous value? Because whenever we have case like this, or even each time, what we need to do is we need to answer equal to absolute difference of s of I and s of previous, because this is what the problem asks us to do, right? You can see that we are concerned about the adjacent character each time. Fine. So now what we can do is we can simply do this particular thing each time. So in order to do this thing, this previous is basically the immediate previous value of this string. So we are going to start with the first character, and then we'll do for I equals to 0 and I smaller than size and I plus plus, right? For this particular case, we are going to do one thing, that if s of I is equal to question mark, you can see that if s of I equal to question mark, in that case s of I, we will do s of I equal to like previous, right? This is what we can do. And once we have done this, then we can simply return the answer. So okay, so we will write this line then, answer plus equals to, okay, answer plus equals to, this is what we need to do. Why? Because we are going to do the same thing for each adjacent character like this, right? So we can do this, answer equal to absolute difference of s of I and s of t. Once we have done this, our task is done. We are simply going to return the answer, Rn. Like, right? This is what we need to do. Now there is one more small case. Okay, so this is all about this problem. This is the approach that we are going to follow. But there is one more case that I want to explain. The case is, let's say I have a question mark here. For this, for the first position, I have the question mark at both the places. In that case, I can't make this as the previous character, right? You can see that because previous character must be a English letter, right? So in that particular case, what we are going to do is, whenever we have case like this, whenever we have a string like this, in that case, first of all, we are going to traverse all the way to this particular character, and then we will make this character as the previous, and then after this we will start. Now this is all about this problem. This particular thing I can show you in the code. So now I'm just going to jump to the code. Let me show you the code. Okay, so here I have written the code. On the left hand side I have the Java code, and on the right hand side I have the C++ code, and I have also written the Python code. Now in the C++ code, I have used the concept of lambda function. So you can see that lambda function allows us to write a function inside a function. Okay, now let's see how we can solve the problem. First of all, we have a possible function, and this possible function is going to do the same task that I have explained you. We are simply going to check whether the two characters are equal or not. So if we have characters that are not equal and not question mark, in that case we need to return false, which means that it is not possible. And the starting point of the problem is this particular case. We are simply going to use a ternary operator in order to check whether it's possible or not. And you can see that here I have written the same condition. Okay, and once we have checked whether it's possible or not, so we can simply write the solve function. And for this solve function, you can see that first of all we are performing the same task that we need to do. We are simply going to replace those particular cases that I have explained you, like a character. Okay, so the cases were a character and a question mark at the position of low and high, or we have a question mark first and then a character, right? So these are the cases that we need to handle. After this, we will have two type of cases where either we have characters at both the places, or we have the like question marks, right? Okay, so let me show you in the code. Okay, let me show you in the board. You can see that we have two type of cases, either character at both the places or question mark at both places. Fine. So moving back to the code, you can see that this is the point where I'm handling that particular case that I've explained you. The case is like this one. I have I here, and then I'm just moving I till I have the question marks. And after this, I will stop at this point, and then I will make it a previous, and then I will start from the point after this, right? So you can see that I have a pointer I which is going to move till we have a question mark. You can see that same the thing I'm doing here. Now one more condition is, if I is equal to the length of s, which means that I have question mark at all places. In that case, I can like replace all the question mark with equal values, right? Okay, let me explain this thing as well. So what I can do is, let's say let's say I have all the question mark. So you can see that I can replace these question mark with equal values. I can make C, 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 C. And in that case, I will have the difference 0 each time. So in that case, the answer is going to be 0, right? Fine. Now, after this, we are starting from I plus, we are first making the value of S of I as the previous character, and then we are starting from I plus 1, and I'm doing the same thing that I've explained you. This is about the C++ code and the Java code. Now you can see the Python code as well. So this is the Python code that we have. Now I'm also going to provide the code in the description box as well and in the pinned comment as well. So this is all about this problem and the approach. If you guys like the explanation, then you can hit the like button. Thank you.